ABC24 This Week starts right now.
Thank you for joining us on ABC24 This Week. I am your host, Pepper Baker. You're here for the real stories behind the big stories, and I hope you'll join us every Sunday at either 9 a.m., 10:35 p.m., or on 24+. All right, let's see who's at the table today. As always, ABC24 political analyst Otis Sanford. We also have former Memphis City Council Chair and former Shelby County Schools Board member Scott McCormick, and Pastor Keith Norman of First Baptist Church Broad. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
We do have a very action-packed show today, so let's get to the topics. First, early findings from the Memphis-Shelby County Schools forensic audit. Then the No Kings protesters in downtown Memphis who were confronted by Memphis police officers. And then lastly, NBA All-Star LeBron James enters the chat about Memphis accommodations. But Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins are playing a little defense for the city, so we'll get into that. But first, let's get to number one, the MSCS audit. The headline for this one, so far, with 25% of the forensic audit complete, the interim report spanning from 2022 to 2024 is showing about $1.1 million flagged for abuse or waste, mostly tied to contract spending. The state spent about $6 million of taxpayer money for the third-party company Clifton Larson Allen LLP to audit MSCS. The audit began in August of 2025. The full report is expected to finish by June 30th. There were two opposing press conferences in Nashville for this announcement. You're about to hear from Tennessee Comptroller Jason Mumpower and Republican House Speaker Cameron Sexton, followed by two Democrats, State Senator Ramesh Akbari and State Representative Karen Camper.
There is a major lack of accountability across the Memphis-Shelby County school systems. Large portions of the forensic audit is not even done yet. But in my opinion as comptroller, this is the worst management of any organization I have seen in my career. I would say, in fact, that it is unprecedented for an organization of this scope and size.
It is such a failure that at some point, do you need any more information to understand what needs to happen, right? How much more fraud, waste, and abuse? We know it's coming. We know it's going to increase. They haven't looked at all the contracts yet, and we have an understanding of what those look like and how abysmal they are, and record keeping and everything else without invoices and what that looks like. That doesn't even take into account the potential for nepotism and other things that's been going on to help family members and others that everybody in Shelby County has said has been going on for decades.
Are there problems in the back of house? Yes. Their human resources probably needs to be completely redone. Their financial controls are antiquated systems that need to be redone. Obviously, they have some issues with the networking and IT. That is completely separate from the experience that a child has in a classroom.
This needs to be a collaborative effort. I don't think that the bill should pass. I think we should wait. Because what I didn't hear enough of was what the actual auditor had to say. I saw some inflammatory words put out there. I heard a lot of rhetoric out there in some of the conversations that came from the stage. But we're looking for solutions for our system.
So Representative Camper was talking about the bill as far as the state takeover that's still looming here. So Otis, I'll have you open it up here. One of the big things I've seen online is the fact that this is early findings of a small percentage of the overall budget, which is about $2 billion a year. But when we're talking about 3 years, that's $6 billion. So is that really something to be this alarmed about?
Well, as someone who balances his checkbook every month down to the penny, which is what I do, any discrepancies, deficiencies, lack of accountability on funds is something to be concerned about. And there were some of those, that's clear. But to me, what I heard from the Republicans in the room was hyperbole on steroids here. To say that this was the worst you've ever seen is really overstating things. Where was he? And I'm talking about Mumpower, and I'm also talking about Cameron Sexton and Randy McNally, all three of them. Where were you when Cherokee Children and Family Services were guilty of corruption at the highest levels? They were a broker for state-funded daycare back in the 90s, and they were taking money hand over fist, using them on lavish trips and vacations, vehicles, and anything that you can imagine, parties and everything like that. And they were getting millions of dollars in state funds. And people went to jail as a result of that. That is the worst that I've seen in my career as a journalist in Memphis. This is not. I mean, yes, we're talking at this point about $1 million in waste and fraud, $1.7 million, I believe, in other spending that's improper on a almost $2 billion budget. And if you go over 3 years, that's over close to 6. I just think that they overstated the whole thing.
Scott, I'll open it up to you here. Should this be as political as it has now gotten?
I don't believe it does any good to politicize it. I think the good that can come out of this is this audit. And true, right now what they have discovered is kind of minuscule and when you look at the overall scope of the dollars. And I believe that there is more, having been there, and mismanagement. And it's not always like criminal mismanagement. It's just people, human nature, just mismanagement. That I would hope that if they do end up having a management board, that's what the management board would focus on, is taking the findings of the audit and try to help manage and put in controls to manage the money and spend the money wisely. It's a huge organization. There are so many facets. It's very difficult. When you're a school board member, you try to look out for things in the budget, but so often everything is explained to you in a way where, this is okay, or we need this. And it's very difficult for school board members to really be able to dig in, because as a school board member, your objective or your challenge is, what you're charged with is not to run the system, it's to set the policy.
Right.
And you have to understand what's going on. And so then it relies on you getting information from the administration. And so often people, it's human nature. They want to justify what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult. But if you have a management board who can dig in a little deeper, that would be a great thing.
So before you jump in here, you think that the state takeover and the state appointed board should happen?
What I'm saying is, if they put a management board in, I would hope that the management board would focus on the findings of the audit.
Okay, fair. And Pastor Norman, your just thoughts on this, especially as we talk about or look forward to a possible state takeover?
So the audit, I believe, was the door that was created to do exactly what you just said, a state takeover. Mm-hmm. There was nothing about academics and nothing about children and outcomes that said do a takeover. It was all about dollars, and so we needed to create that. One of the things that Sexton said, he said decades. These things have been going on for decades. His words, not mine. Right. And if we have known about these things for decades, why now and why an audit at this particular moment? It is because we're talking about a $2 billion chunk that they want to give oversight to, and we don't have clear objectives as to what we're trying to achieve. I'd like to offer a few. 3 years, because it's inevitable. They've already decided this. This bill looks like it's going to pass. But if we're going to have 3 years of board management oversight, there needs to be no more than 3 years with 1 year renewable terms after clear objectives have been set that this is what the board is going to achieve. And one of the things we need to achieve with that board is criteria and qualifications for what a school board member should look like. The reason we're in this position now is that obviously people who were setting policy did not do a good job, and they did not have good oversight and management of that. One of the things that you also heard one of the Democratic legislators say, we've had a problem with hiring for years. We have not had the right people in position there. No put down against some of the people who were in HR, but I don't know that they had HR background. They probably were people in the system who were promoted up, who had education background, but not human resources background. Now we have people in place who can help do those things and do them right. I believe that the superintendent, who is now recently appointed, is the right person. Give him time, and then have clear objectives as to what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Very briefly, one point that Scott made, and it was made by the Republicans in their press conference, which is, I think, very accurate. There's been a lot of turnover in the
Exactly.
school system, including at the very top. Look how many we've had, 6,
4 to 6, yeah.
4 to 6, well, permanent and interims since 2013.
Right.
And look at all the other turnover that has happened there at the lower levels. And there was a lot of turnover when Marie Fagans took over. And the very end of the audit focuses on when she took over, at least the last 2 or 3 months. So the turnover means that there was lack of institutional knowledge in a lot of the key areas, and that is also part of the problem when you can't account for some of the dollars going.
Where are the whistleblowers that triggered the audit? Because typically when an audit is triggered, it is because someone, let's face it, who was once getting a contract was now cut out of the fact or the opportunity to get a contract, and they call in anonymously and say, you know, you need to look into this because we see this practice, but they've once been a part of the practice. And so if there's going to be a forensic audit and there's going to be some hand slapping for those people who did it, is there also an opportunity to say to the people who received it, here's your punishment as well? And I got one question for you. What's a checkbook? You said you balance it every day.
Scott, you have the last point on this.
Well, when I was there, you know, we went through 3, maybe 4. The title was Deputy Superintendent of Business Operations, which is probably one of the, outside of the superintendent over education, probably the most important position. And we went through 3, maybe 4. And part of the problem was, back then, you know, it was just about $1 billion budget when I was there, but that's still $1 billion. To find somebody with experience from corporate who's managed that kind of budget, and the pay that was offered, which was around $180,000, just didn't line up. We couldn't really attract some really knowledgeable, really experienced people to run business operations because we couldn't offer competitive salaries. And so, not to disparage the people that we did hire, but they weren't really quite capable of managing the budget that we had.
All good points to make. We could talk about this one for the whole show, but
yeah.
we have to move on. When we come back, we're going to talk about the No Kings protest and a confrontation with Memphis police. Stay with us.